The Trump administration is pushing back on reports the United States lost track of nearly 1,500 immigrant children in their custody last year. Health and Human Services saying, quote, "These children are not lost. Their sponsors, who were usually parents or family members, simply did not respond or could not be reached when this voluntary call was made." While there are many possible reasons for this, in many cases sponsors cannot be reached because they themselves are illegal aliens and do not want to be reached by federal authorities, end quote. Meanwhile, President Trump is slamming people on the left who mistakenly posted a photograph of young illegals inside cages. The picture was actually taken during the Obama administration in 2014. Here's what the president tweeted. That fact exact. Democrats mistakenly tweet 2014 pictures from Obama's term showing children from the border in steel cages. They thought it was recent pictures in order to make us look bad, but backfires. DEMS must agree to wall and new border protection for good of country, bipartisan bill, end quote. I'm joined now by Republican Congressman from California, Jeff Denham. How can the facts be looked upon so differently here? What happened with those 1,500 children?
Well, it certainly is a very political issue with plenty of reason for both sides to raise the political flames of a very critical issue. But specifically on the unaccompanied minors, these are minors that have come across our southern border. They do go to similar detention camps like the picture that's been shown several times. But ultimately, they end up with family or friends or relatives back in a community. And as you said, oftentimes it's with other illegal immigrants that do not want to answer a phone or do not want to report, because usually these dates are 1 to 2 years before they have a trial date or before there is actual due process. You
know, Congressman Denham, I want to go back to the picture for just a second, because sometimes people tune in and out. And I want to make it very clear that that picture was posted and has since been deleted by some people who call themselves journalists, saying that they didn't check the date and that it was 2014 instead of 2018. But the significance was, if we go back a couple of years, 3, 4 years, this was a time when our borders were so porous, and they still are, but the flow was so heavy of these children. It was like 90,000 at one point, unaccompanied minors.
Yeah, they were. I've toured these facilities. They were way overcrowded. But you can see the whole point of releasing this picture is to blame the Trump administration, when this is actually a broken immigration system that was just as broken, if not worse, under the previous administration. It's why we need to have a solution today.
You know, and looking at the solution, Democrats want to say, well, Republicans aren't as good-hearted about the issue. And sometimes you on the right side of the aisle get painted as a group that wouldn't want to come to the table on some of the issues. Yet this president, this Republican president, has probably talked about this issue more than any in recent history.
Yeah, he has, and the president has talked about it not only from a permanent fix for Dreamers, very compassionately, but also very strongly about a border wall. I mean, I think that we have to do both, as well as fix a number of these other issues that are part of our broken immigration system as well. But, you know, I'm encouraged that he talked about a bipartisan bill. I think ultimately something that comes out of the House in the next few weeks will be very, very bipartisan, and will certainly address those two issues, giving the president exactly what he's asking for on border security, but also having a real permanent fix with a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers.
Republicans control the House. Republicans control the Senate, and even when there's a little bit of a tie, the vice president can step in if somebody can't come vote. Why can't you guys get this done?
Well, part of the challenge with immigration is there is no timeline. You know, unlike other bills, the FAA bill, the Farm Bill, or appropriations bills, everything expires and you've got a timeline that forces you to bring up a vote. There hasn't been one until this president gave us the March 5th deadline, and as you've seen, Congress blew past that. So we are using something that is part of a parliamentary rule to actually force a debate. And I think that's a good thing, to force a timeline in the House of Representatives so we can get a bipartisan solution, push it over to the Senate, and actually get it signed into law.
What do you think about first addressing blocking the flow of people into this country. You know, you bring up the word wall or wall system, which is what the president calls it, because in some places you can't put a wall, so you're going to fortify with more people from the Border Patrol. You're going to staff up, if you will. But when you bring up that word, what is the reaction on the Hill? Because, again, Republicans control both chambers right now.
Yeah, again, when you talk about a wall, that is usually something that the left is trying to use to just attack this president. Even though in 2013, the Gang of Eight bill that came out of the Senate had $42 billion for border security and for a wall. So, you know, this is something we've just got to get done. And I think both parties can come together and do this. Although the critics would say, build the wall first, and then we'll talk about all the other aspects of immigration. If it were that easy, we'd be doing it. The challenge is finding something that, you know, we're pairing two different issues together, border security with a permanent fix for Dreamers, that I think that we can not only do at the same time, but we can do it on a bipartisan level.
Yeah, maybe you scream a little bit of hypocrisy when you look at the mistakenly tweeted photo when people didn't know from just Googling that it was 4 years old. I'll give you last word.
Well, you know, it's difficult on a political year coming up in November to get something done. I think that this would have been better to handle last year or last decade, but I think we've got a real opportunity to come together in the coming weeks, doing something bipartisan, and just take this issue off the table. Well,
look, you're in a state of California where it is a constant conversation, I would imagine. I appreciate your time, Congressman Denham. Thank you very much.
Liberals trying to hammer President Trump on immigration, only to have this backfire in a big way. It turns out the article that they were tweeting from a paper in Arizona, it showed pictures of immigrant children in cages. Well, this was actually from 2014 during President Obama's term, not President Trump's. They quickly deleted those tweets, their mistakes. But are they still just as outraged now that they find out that it wasn't the president, the current president? Here now to debate that, Talk America radio contributor Kimberly Klasick and Democratic strategist David Morey. Guys, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Good morning.
David, I want to start with you. This article now is 4 years old. I don't remember a lot of outrage when this article came out at the time, and these tweets have since been deleted. How do you defend that?
Well, I think that it sounds like they were wrong. They should say they were wrong. Yeah. This issue, Rob, you know, is one of many administrations. The Bush administration, the Obama administration brought illegal immigration down substantially. So has the Trump administration. It's kicked back up. This is about polarization more than policy, and it divides ourselves one part against another. It ignites one extreme against another. And we see that the blame, I'm saying, is everywhere. Multiple administrations, Congress, the White House, Democrats, Republicans. And if we merely abrogate to the states and the courts, Rob, we're not going to necessarily like the solution that happens. The administration may not like the solution that happens, and it'll continue to ignite ourselves. We need a bipartisan bill after these midterms.
Okay, and yeah, there's a lot to talk about in the immigration debate. Kimberly, I want to go over to you. When this article came out, do you recall anybody being outraged at these pictures? Do you remember a big backlash? It seems, though, that maybe this was what they call selective outrage, because the president, the current president, is responsible. People got mad, and maybe now they're not.
Yeah, no, I never even heard of this article until it came out recently, falsely. So unfortunately, we live in a time where the climate is that we're going to smear President Trump and his administration at all costs. So you have liberals and anti-Trumpers doing whatever they can, even inadvertently ruling out their ounce of credibility just to take him down. Sean King, for him to post this photo from 2014, this should end his career. He, not long ago, I would say probably a month ago, posted about a Texas police officer allegedly sexually harassing and raping a woman as he apprehended her. It turned out that that was false, and luckily they had body cams to prove that. So I asked, in 2014, why wasn't President Obama held accountable for these photos? In 2010, President Obama had all three branches of government. He could have done something about DACA and immigration, and he decided not to. And I have to point out, many Democrats decided to vote against the issues as well.
David, over to you. I want to show you this response tweet after Linda Sarsour, who's a very polarizing figure in this country in the first place. She deleted the initial tweet from Sunday, and then she posted this. No amnesia here. Our immigration system is a disaster and was a disaster long before Trump came along. Now it will become increasingly worse under this white supremacist administration who have made their hatred for immigrants crystal clear. Is that a fair response in your opinion?
No, of course not. I mean, it's back to my first point. This is political extremism, polarization, one side against another. I mean, in fairness, Kimberly, you know, the Trump administration is not just the only people getting smeared. They're doing a little bit of smearing themselves. This has become a political issue. The president's gone hard to his base. He's over-serving his base, probably more than any president in history. And that's solidifying the base, but it's not necessarily solving the problem. I'd love to see, after these bloody midterms, Rob, a bill that has names on it like McCain and Graham, a bipartisan bill that gets to a solution as opposed to everyone accusing everyone else of all kinds of smears.
Working between the aisle. Remember those days? How novel that was.
Long time ago.
Hey, Kimberly, I want to ask you real quick. Is this a clear picture of how polarized we've become, that it almost seems like people are only angry when something is done by somebody from the other team? When their guy does it, they don't really care?
Absolutely. And I have to say, David, I understand, but you have to admit that President Trump is taking the brutal beating here way more than Obama has. And I just ask going forward that these self-proclaimed journalists just do some fact-checking and research before dragging people for their narrative and their agenda.
Lots of beating going on here.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. That was a great discussion on this topic. We appreciate it.